Welcome back to the Grep News Podcast. I'm Bam Rather, and our show today is about how a machinist with a shoestring budget of just $70,000 defeated a Trump-endorsed opponent who spent nearly $750,000. So a Democrat just won a Texas state Senate seat that Trump carried by 17 points. And before you ask, yes, I said 17. Not a typo, not my neural networks misfiring. 17 actual percentage points. Taylor Rehmet won by 14,000 votes, nearly 15 percentage points, in a district that's supposed to be safely Republican. The kind of margin where political operatives stop returning your calls because they've got actual competitive races to worry about. And that's when the campaign finance reports got interesting. Because here's the thing about American politics that we've all quietly accepted. Money wins elections. It's predictive, it's reliable. You check the fundraising numbers before you check the polls. Except when it completely isn't. Lee Wamsgans, the Republican candidate, spent $736,000 in the runoff alone. She had $300,000 in cash on hand going into Election Day. Taylor Rehmet spent roughly $70,000 total. He had zero cash on hand. Let me put that in perspective. Wamsgans outspent Rehmet more than 10-1, and she lost by 15 points. The question isn't whether money matters in politics. The real question is what happens when the math stops working. Now, before we go further, let me tell you who these people actually are, because the candidates tell you everything you need to know about where American politics is headed. Taylor Rehmet is a machinist, works with his hands, Air Force veteran, union leader, and that detail matters in Texas, a right-to-work state where union organizing is about as welcome as snow in August. He's a first-time candidate who ran on lowering costs, supporting public education, and protecting jobs. The kind of economic populism that used to be standard Democratic fare before the party decided it wanted to be the party of people with graduate degrees. Lee Wamsgans is the Chief Communications Officer for Patriot Mobile, a cell phone company that positions itself as the conservative alternative to big tech. But that's not what made her a political force. She helped the GOP fill North Texas school boards with Christian conservative candidates. Tarrant County became the testing ground. Book bans, curriculum rewrites, the whole culture war playbook. According to reports, her activism resulted in what one source called an explosion across the country of similar efforts, making the line between church and state considerably thinner. So you have a union machinist versus a conservative activist who made her name putting religious conservatives on school boards, and the machinist won, in a district Trump carried by 17 points. Let me show you how the money moved, because this is where it gets interesting. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who presides over the Texas Senate and wields enormous power, contributed $300,000 to Wamsgans through his PAC. He went on record pleading with Tarrant County Republicans to vote for her. Donald Trump posted 3 separate get-out-the-vote messages in the 48 hours before the election, calling Wamsgans an incredible supporter of his Make America Great Again movement. Casino magnate Miriam Adelson in Las Vegas Sands poured about $3.5 million into the GOP candidate that Wamsgans defeated in the initial November election. That candidate, John Huffman, got about 16% of the vote, splitting the Republican base and forcing the runoff. And here's where the story splits. Dan Patrick opposes casinos. Publicly, vocally opposes them. Yet casino money flooded into this race, supporting Republican candidates. Wamsgans echoed Patrick's anti-casino stance, but she was running in a primary runoff against another Republican who'd been backed by casino interests. Nobody's talking about that contradiction. Nobody's asking why casino money is propping up candidates who promise to oppose casinos. But that's the kind of footnote that tells you everything about how power actually works. Donors don't buy policy outcomes, they buy access to the conversation. They buy a seat at the table. Whether you win or lose the specific policy fight is almost beside the point. On the Democratic side, Vote Vets, a progressive veterans PAC, spent approximately $500,000 on ads supporting Rehmet. That's significant money, but it's still dwarfed by the Republican spending. The Texas Majority PAC, the political arm of the state Democratic Party, contributed more than half of Rehmet's total haul with about $143,000. So Rehmet had help. He wasn't some pure grassroots miracle. But the dollar per vote ratio still doesn't make sense by conventional metrics.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
After he won, Rehmet said something I keep turning over. We have an opportunity to really show that if you have a good message and you stick to voters and what they want, listen, that you can win an election as an underdog, that you can overcome millions and millions spent against you. As long as you're doing the right thing, you can get elected. It's the kind of thing every candidate says, except he actually did it. Now, let's talk about what this means for November, because both candidates are running again. This special election was just to fill the remaining 11 months of Kelly Hancock's term. He resigned to become Texas acting comptroller. The Texas legislature doesn't even meet again until next session, so Rehmet won't cast a single legislative vote during his abbreviated term. But November is different. Full 4-year term, higher turnout, general election dynamics instead of special election weirdness. Wamsgans is already framing it that way. After her loss, she said, "The dynamics of a special election are fundamentally different from a November general election. I believe the voters of Senate District 9 and Tarrant County Republicans will answer the call in November." She's not wrong about turnout differences. Special elections are notoriously unpredictable. Lower turnout, different demographics, motivated bases can swing results. But here's what nobody's saying. Rehmet came within about 3 percentage points of winning outright in the initial November election. He got 48% in a 3-way race. If Republicans hadn't split their vote between Wamsgans and Huffman, would Rehmet have pulled it off anyway? We don't know. And that uncertainty is driving Republicans absolutely insane. Ken Martin, the Democratic National Committee chairman, called the result a warning sign to Republicans across the country. He's not being subtle about the narrative. Democrats are overperforming in special elections since Trump returned to office for his second term. They dominated the first major election day after Trump's inauguration, winning governor races in Virginia and New Jersey, plus special elections in Kentucky and Iowa. The pattern is real. The question is whether it holds through November. And here's what's conspicuously missing from every single report I've read: actual voter voices. Not a single quote from someone explaining why they voted for Rehmet in a district Trump won by 17 points. Not one interview with a Republican who flipped, not one conversation with a suburban mom or a small business owner or anyone who can explain what actually happened on the ground. We have the numbers. We have the money. We have the party officials spinning their narratives. But we don't have the voters. What we do have is Tarrant County, which has been politically schizophrenic. Trump won it by 5 points recently. Biden carried it by about 1,800 votes out of more than 834,000 cast previously. Now, a Democrat just won a state Senate district that's described as redder than its home, Tarrant County. Something's shifting. We just don't know exactly what. The Tarrant County GOP chair, Tim Davis, tried to make it about culture war issues. He framed the election this way: do we want to live in communities that respect the rule of law, affirm life and the unborn, and protect women's private spaces? Or do we want to live in places like what we're seeing right now out of Minneapolis, full of fraud and chaos? Rehmet responded by talking about lowering costs and protecting jobs. And Rehmet won, which suggests that maybe, just maybe, voters care more about their grocery bills than whatever's supposedly happening in Minneapolis. Or that the culture war playbook that worked a few cycles ago isn't landing the same way anymore. Or that Wamsgance's role in the school board wars, the book bans, the curriculum fights, created backlash from parents who think things went too far. We don't know which explanation is right, probably all of them, probably none of them completely.
Oh, hey, friend. Do you like what you're hearing? Now you can have a ridiculously amazing podcast, too. Check out holler.studio to get yourself one today.
What we know is this: a machinist union leader who spent $70,000 just beat a well-funded conservative activist In a district, Donald Trump won by 17 points. Both will face off again in November, when turnout will be higher and national attention will be even more intense. Democrats have recruited candidates for all 150 state House districts, 16 state Senate districts, and every other state and federal contest in Texas this cycle. No Democrat has won a statewide race in Texas since the mid-90s, but they're acting like this is the year the dam breaks. Republicans are acting like they just found a crack in the foundation. And notice what's missing. Any discussion of what Rehmet can actually accomplish during his 11-month term. Any detail about his specific union affiliation or organizing background. Any explanation of local economic conditions that might explain the vote. Any polling data showing what issues actually moved voters. The story everyone's telling is about national implications in November and whether this signals a Democratic wave. But the story nobody's telling is about Fort Worth, about what actually changed in that specific place with those specific people that made them vote differently than they did 18 months ago. That's the story I want to read, the one buried in the footnotes nobody's checking. Because if Democrats can flip a Trump plus 17 seat by talking about grocery prices and good jobs, that's not just a warning sign for Republicans. That's a completely different map. Thank you for listening to GREP News. If you are enjoying our podcast, please follow the show. Give us a 5-star rating to help us grow, and learn more at grep.news. Until next time.
Grep News. Tamez.